Hello everyone, good morning. First of all, I would like to thank to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to be here. I am very happy to be able to share with you the research that I developed during the last year. And this research has been carried out for the operational chains applied to a specific bison from the Polychromes saline in the Cave of Altamira, in order to know the material, social, and temporal implication of its execution. Research into Paleolithic art began at the end of the 19th century. The discovery of Altamira marked a turning point in these studies. But it was not until the second half of the 20th century that the development of new technologies marked a before and after and brought to light other methodologies applicable to research into Paleolithic graphic activity, like operational chains, experimental archaeology, and social archaeology. The studies for the operational chains are carried out in order to understand the sequence of gestures that lead to the transformation of a raw material into a useful product. Thanks to this, we can infer to the social and cultural characteristic of the particular human group. On the other hand, experimental archaeology gives us the economic and social data obtained from such research can be explained. Although it has always been a discipline used in lithic studies, in rock art studies, Courot, Lorranchet, and Musquet are three of the researchers who have contributed the most. The research carried out by these two disciplines has boosted the interest in delving into the social organization and structure in Upper Paleolithic, which at first were thought to be egalitarian or semi-egalitarian. But lately, this supposed equality has been questioned as it was perceived that it had never been demonstrated with archaeological material to exist. Therefore, by approaching parietal art from the use of operational themes and experimental program questions, such as the division of labor or the social stratification for human groups, can be addressed. So our main objective was to deepen our knowledge of upper Paleolithic societies and in particular their organization and structuring. To this end, we will combine the studies of operational chains and experimental archaeology to evaluate how graphic activity can condition the influence to the social structuring, since rock art is a social product resulting for human labor. This research is based on a sailing of Polychromes bison from the sailing of the Sala de los Polychromes in the Cave of Altamira, from which the operational chain of a specific bison, the number 36, will be reproduced in order to obtain the closest results to the original representation and in this way to quantify its production costs. Our proposed operational chain is divided in three phases. In the phase of this, the production of the graphic model, the author acquires a prior idea of the representation he is going to carry out. In the second phase, the preparation of material, the various materials involved in the production of the graphics are selected and transformed. And finally, the third phase is the execution procedure. In this phase, the execution is planned, the order of organization of the space and the placement of the graphics, etc. We have certain advantages as the fact that the one chosen was not superimposed on any figure of that, therefore the calculation of the coloring used was reliable, that the measurement was of the average size of the rest of bison, and that it is also directly dated. But despite of this, as you can think or as you may have thought, painting a bison from the sailing of Altamira has its difficulties. The main one is that we didn't have access to the original one, plus the fact that it was done outdoors without humidity, without the original position and a sailing, and with natural light from not a lamp. So to carry out the experimentation, we created a specific experimental program in which we clearly set out the operational chains involved in the bison replication process and the variables to be taken into account in the collection of quantitative data for subsequent processing and obtaining results. The tests were divided into preliminary test and final experiment, in which we used the two main elements, wood and ochre. We started with charcoal processing. We made 4 preliminary tests to obtain the charcoal that was neither brittle and flimsy. In the first 3, we removed the charcoal after 8 to 10 minutes and quenched them with water, earth, and free air. In the 4th, the coal were left for 7 minutes and immersed in water to extinguish them. In the final and definitive experimentation of the coals, we made 3 attempts, all of them controlled and monitored by thermocouples to know the exact temperature that the bonfire reached. In the first 2, the coals were removed after 12 minutes and the fire was extinguished with 11 liters of earth. However, the third experiment was carried out in a hole dug in the ground with a diameter of 45 centimeters in which a resetting fire was made, covered with earth, 88 minutes and 42 seconds, and after it was lit off and covered after 1 hour and 30 minutes. This is where the coals for the final execution of the bison came from. We continue processing ochre. 2 applications were made. Of the 2, the second one was very interesting because I gained experience in drawing and painting on rock, which, as I said before, it's something fundamental to carry out an experimentation, to have like a previous experience. In the final experimentation, as you can see, the different application mixtures were made, taking the quantities of all of them and with differences between them. And finally, we made the final execution of the graphic. 4 preliminary tests of the coal to be used were made. The first 3 tests were done daily on rock, testing also with water, heating the active zone of the charcoal. The 4th application was purely for the purpose to learning the gesture, use of the material, etc., and it was done on craft paper. In the final experiment, the measurements of the support were taken, which were exactly the same as the original ones, and the area was cleaned. Before painting, 15 coals of different sizes and compactness were chosen from the reduction bonfire, and the outer line of the bison, which was originally engraved, was painted with white chalk. The charcoal was applied in 2 applications, outlining the figure of the animal, and as you can see, the red dye we were talking about, was also applied in 2 moments. And this is the final result made from a photogrammetry. This is another view of the photogrammetry. And the most remarkable thing about the Bayesian obtained is that we have obtained is a 3 application moment before, but finally there were 5. Here you can see much better the results, and the total application time for 1 bison was 1 hour and 26 minutes. In addition, all the previous work of processing ochre and charcoal gave us a result of 2 hours and 43 minutes, used only on a single bison. But here, what is really interesting is to see this extrapolated to the rest of the polychrome bison, that the total application time was 20 hours and 16 minutes, and the total time spent on the bison was perhaps 39 hours. So, what are the implications for this? In addition to being a piece of information that we have never known before, it is definitely suggestive to be able to affirm that the author of this graffiti was a specialized person due to the compositional characteristic of a bison group. But this is even possible that this person was assisted by another members of the groups whose functions was to capture and possibly transform the raw materials. As mentioned, this suggests a specialization within Paleolithic society, which could be giving us a clue about the social stratification in which these talks and activities would be concentrated in certain members of society, and therefore this data implies a selection of activities whose transcendence we don't know, but they give us a glimpse of the worst preferences of these societies, even if the development of that activity does not have a direct relation with the subsistence issues. This link between the result obtained and Paleolithic society provides new data, which raises new hypotheses about the inequalities of hunter-gatherer societies. At the time, we have studies within social archaeology are becoming more important. Studies of operational chains applied to rock art are still very scarce, and at the same time, experimental programs applied to the study of Paleolithic rock art are practically non-existent. In this sense, our research, although preliminary, represents a contribution to a field in which much remains to be done. By means of this first approach, we have developed an operational chain, a graphic approach by means of phases, an experimental program in which, for the first time, we propose procedures, techniques, and results that contribute quantitative data to the qualitative information obtained by previous researchers, albeit with some limitations. Despite all this, the result supports the line of research which is now being developed in my doctoral thesis, which is focused on the control and techniques and applications of different materials and the replicability of the experimentation in order to obtain more reliable data and reduce the margin of error with the help of new technologies, and more exhaustive study of the new experiment that will be carried out, and with this unresolved hypotheses can be answered and new ones can be put forward. So thank you very, very much for your attention, and it has been a pleasure to share you my experimentation. And if you have any doubt, do not hesitate to write to my email. Thank you so much.